December 7th, 1941.
It was the start of the greatest of world wars, and while thousands died on the battlefield, many more, including heroes who now call Alaska their home, survived.
I think it's a chance to recognize, if it hadn't been for what they accomplished, our life wouldn't be the same today.
For Alaska's World War II veterans, visiting the War Memorial in May was perhaps the last chapter of their lives. KTVA's Joe Vigil traveled to the nation's capital with 44 veterans from far-flung Alaskan communities to honor their service and hear their stories.
I was pretty disgusted with Japan at the time, and I felt that we were going to be able to just blast the heck out of them.
There's no sound like 1,000 pounds of dynamite going off against a 5/8 steel hull. And you're down in the engine room.
And I seen the airplane blow up off for a while and quite a ways, but whether he got out, I don't know.
The trip to Washington gave our vets an opportunity to see the memorial built on the National Mall. And if you want to see the importance of it all, just look at these veterans' faces. Last Frontier Honor Flight, brought to you with limited commercial interruption by Chaz Limited Collision Express, Halliburton, and by Anchorage Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Center. And now, from the Alaska Aviation Museum in Anchorage, here's Joe Vigil.
Well, good evening, everyone. We are here on this Memorial Day at the Alaska Aviation Museum with proud Alaska veterans, many of whom are recently returned from our nation's capital. It was a free trip sponsored by the Last Frontier Honor Flight, dedicated to sending World War II veterans to our nation's capital to see their memorial. And we followed them every step of the way.
It's nice to meet you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
The trip started at Ted Stevens Airport.
I'd like to thank you.
Yeah, you.
Thank you so much for what you did.
Okay.
And what you continue to do. Thank you.
Where many felt compelled to give back to Alaska's veterans for what they gave decades ago.
I appreciate what they did. It makes me want to cry when I think about what they put themselves through for my country. And I just appreciate it, and I want them to know that.
Thank you so much for your service.
Well, I can't say it was a privilege, but it felt good to do it.
Honor Flight volunteer Jackie Kalnoski has 40 or so relatives who've sacrificed serving in the military.
And we are so glad you're here.
She can't imagine not being here to send the group off.
And thank you for coming on this trip. They came home from the war. They went right back to their world and their lives. This is our way of honoring them. You're going to make me cry. It's just so important to my heart. Every one of us involved with Honor Flight.
Then it was off to Portland.
From seas who shine, you see.
Throughout our plane, we do have 46 World War II veterans today. We're very honored to have them with us today.
There are a lot of thank yous going around. Norman Elliott was in charge of a howitzer unit in Germany during World War II. Decades after the war, he is more than modest about his service.
It's hard to put it into words because I think I'm speaking for all of us, I don't think we deserve it. I'll put it that way.
The hospitality didn't end on the plane. Right after landing in Portland, officers stood proud to welcome Alaska vets to their city.
Thank you.
For many vets, this may be their last big trip. 700 World War II veterans die every day. Judith Eckert from Homer knows the pain.
My heart is just swelling. I lost my dad Friday, a veteran, World War II. lots of memories, lots of amazing memories.
She had no idea her flight to Portland would be filled with World War II honor flight veterans.
I just really believe it was God's providence I was here. I know my dad's here. I just feel so fortunate to have these incredible men around me with the, you know, they're the greatest generation.
From the Army to the Navy to the Air Force and Marines, we showed this group of veterans their stories of the honor flight trip.
People sometimes ask us why we do this. It's a lot of work, but when you see the reaction on these folks' face, that's why we do it.
Gives the country a chance to honor all these gentlemen here and the ones that came behind us. Because, you know, we're not going to see too many of them, all of them. We're kind of a dying breed.
Well, I'll tell you, when we came off the plane and saw all those people and clapping and cheering us and shaking our hands, it gave us a very gratified feeling that we had been remembered.
Also part of that generation, a little lady named Nancy, standing only about 5'2", who had a tall order during the Second World War. 93-year-old World War II veteran Nancy Baker from Fairbanks is carrying something on the flight that is getting a lot of attention.
She had fun showing this to all the pilots yesterday.
And what did the pilots say when you showed them your card?
It says I am certified to fly these airplanes. That's what it is.
Warbirds.
P-40, P-47, P-51, P-63.
Like driving a new car off a sales lot, 20-year-old Baker flew brand new planes from U.S. factories to the East Coast. From there, ships hauled them to war overseas. Baker didn't get a lot of training on the planes before flying them from the showroom.
You're going to be sitting up here behind 2,000 horsepower.
We got instructions. We got verbal instructions.
Verbal instructions?
Hell yeah. But that's the...
Fly the plane. That was probably pretty much your instructions, right?
Yep, just took off. Just took off and flew.
As a way to say thanks for her service, an Alaska Airlines captain who would fly her today from Portland to the nation's capital.
I'm flying you today.
Oh, this is our pilot.
Yeah.
Gave Baker a look at something much newer than she's used to.
Hi, Eric.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Just very, very fine.
Oh, good. Well, it's an honor to meet you.
You see the big new airplanes? Yep.
Yeah, they're pretty fancy nowadays.
Yep.
She tells us men never had a problem with her flying. It was her height that was sometimes an issue.
One day, somebody reported a P-47 flying around the airport without a pilot.
Without a pilot, okay.
And then the tower called in and found it was me. But I was so small they couldn't see me.
When Baker returned home from the war, she flew encyclopedias to people in the bush.
It should be in every household, especially with kids in it. Yeah, but I enjoyed doing that.
Some people these days probably don't even know what an encyclopedia is.
Yeah, that's right. And I feel sorry for them.
And after a 5-hour flight from Portland, we finally reached Washington, D.C. And something happened in the airport that vets will never forget. 85-year-old David Levitt Sr. from Barrow was the first to step off the plane in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
He can't wait to check out his memorial, the World War II memorial.
Yeah, I like to see it.
He had no idea what he was about to see and hear on the other side of this walkway.
Well, there are people coming. They're happy
Yeah. Spontaneous eruption of cheers from people they don't even know.
Thank you. I'm so proud of you guys. Thank you.
The roar seemed to get louder and louder as Alaska vets proudly walked into Reagan National Airport, reminding strangers what sacrifices they had made. Frank Flavin traded gunfire with the Germans in France during World War II.
Very proud. For them to cheer us on like that, it's really wonderful to feel that and hear it.
Navy man Robert Johnston from Fairbanks conducted some stealth swimming operations in the South Pacific and took out Japanese ships by attaching mines to them.
I think this is so great. This is the first time since I got out of the service in the 40s that I've ever had anything like this. This is really great. This is what it ought to be when all of the boys come home.
Quite an honor, not just from people at a D.C. airport, but simply proud Americans who are grateful to the men and women from Alaska who helped keep all of us free. What did you think about all those people out there in the cheer?
Well, it was just, mind-boggling. I had, when the war was over, we just went home and that was it. And never thought about any celebrations or anything. So this is the first we've had. And here I am, 91, and still here every day is a bonus.
I was astonished. It absolutely blew me away. I've never seen that such honor given to people, and I don't think I was deserving of it, but it just amazed me. School kids just blessed me, and all wanted to have their pictures taken with you, and all clapped and all said, "We honor you." And
what did you think of the plane there that day?
I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. It was wonderful.
You ever had a welcome like that before?
No, I didn't. Every time we landed at the airport, we got a welcome. Every time we left, we got a welcome.
Non-stop.
Non-stop.
The Last Frontier Honor Flight. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alaska Aviation Museum, where veterans are looking back at the 2014 Honor Flight. Well, then, it was off to the war memorials, built to make sure the service and sacrifice of vets is never forgotten. Well, people visiting the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. proved to Alaska vets that the greatest generation is not the forgotten generation. Leading the way into the memorial on this day is Wesley Aiken and David Levitt Sr.
Welcome and thank you for your service.
The two are the last remaining Territorial Guard members from Barrow.
Thank you for your service and welcome to your memorial.
As people here honor those who fought and remember those who died.
Second World War Memorial.
Aiken and Levitt pay special tribute to deceased Territorial Guard member John Norbert Sr. from Nome and Johnny Bennett Sr., too ill to take the trip. The Alaska Territorial Guard, or ATG, was organized in 1942 in response to Pearl Harbor and occupation of some Aleutian Islands by the Japanese. Some 6,000 ATG members, some as old as 80, one as young as 12, protected Alaska's coast. Many feel they kept the Japanese from advancing after their occupation.
Yeah, I like that, with Alaska.
The ATG attention here is long overdue because the U.S. government wouldn't pay Guard members and even denied them veterans' rights like health care until 2000.
How does it feel to be recognized after all these years?
Good year. Yeah, really nice. I like it.
This memorial was built to make sure the service of World War II veterans is never forgotten, and fitting today that the once pushed to the side ATG is remembered too. Now, going into this, we had no idea how these veterans would react to seeing these memorials. On our second day in D.C., I had to return to our tour bus at Arlington National Cemetery because I forgot something in my backpack. Well, on that bus is where we learned that war is still tough on these vets decades after combat. More than 70 years after World War II,
thank you for your service and welcome to your memorial.
Wasilla veteran Eldon Gallier continues to wonder why people are so thankful.
This is for you.
Yeah, well, maybe it is. People have been great. Man, I never expected anything like this from the people.
Gallier and other Alaskans who left their jobs and their families to fight for freedom cherished the day they've been waiting decades for. The new World War II memorial is only 10 years old. But as the Honor Flight tour continued over to Arlington National Cemetery, things changed for Gallier. All those headstones, nearly 420,000 headstones.
When I see all them gravestones, boy, I don't know.
While Gallier's friends watched the somber ceremony of a guard protecting the tomb of the unknown soldier, he stayed behind.
It's all kind of hard maybe to explain, but I didn't feel like going to the memorial or up there and knowing what that forgotten soldier was.
So there he sat on the bus thinking about the enemy sinking his ship and sending him into the water in 1944.
You make buddies on a ship, and I have an idea to do the same in the Army and the Navy. And when you lose a ship and you lose your buddies, it isn't exactly easy.
On that bus, he thought about a child.
As one little girl in grade school asked me if I'd ever been scared, and I said yes, twice. Once in the South China Sea in a typhoon, and the other time on a life raft when sharks were bumping it, trying to roll me off so that they could kill me bite by bite.
And Gallier wonders why people make such a fuss about veterans of the greatest generation.
So Eldon, I know you had kind of a tough time that day on the bus. How often does war become overwhelming for you like that? You know, a weekly basis, every couple of months? How often do you feel like that?
Well, it comes just ever so often. I was called a few months ago and told that I was the last living one of that crew.
What would you like to say to people on your ship?
God bless you. And if you'll read in the Bible, Revelations 20, chapter 20, verse 13, you'll find that the good Lord is going to call all you boys back, along with the rest of us.
Also on the trip, veterans from the Korean and Vietnam Wars. One of those vets was anxious to find a war buddy, shot down with him over Seoul. We were right there as he searched for Jack Allen. More than 60 years after fighting in the Korean War.
You can get some paratroopers up there. The top one?
Yeah, I just threw him out of the airplane, that's all.
Robert Kittleson has a new mission at the Korean War Veterans Memorial.
Jack Allen.
His mission is to find war buddy Jack Allen.
He was the pilot with me when I got shot down. We got shot down together, bailed out. I never knew what happened to him after we left the airplane.
On his 22nd air mission, Allen, Kittleson, and crew were hunting locomotives in their B-26 airplane over Seoul.
They blew our right wing all up and had to holler those Indian words, Geronimo.
I heard you talk about jumping out of airplanes.
After swapping war stories with other Alaska vets, Kittleson continued looking for Jack Allen without much luck.
I'll have to find somebody that knows.
Then, the organizer of the Anchorage Honor Flight gave him some bad news.
The pictures are photos, but they don't list the names of the lost folks.
I guess I was misinformed.
Bob Kittleson didn't quit the service after being shot down in Korea. No, he went to Vietnam, where he flew 64 missions. Behind me, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial.
There's all the names. I don't know how many of those boys I held out. They just get on the airplane and would take them out and dump them off and go back and get another load.
So, Kittleson leaves our nation's capital without knowing any names of Vietnam veterans he helped.
Sure would like to know how many of those I brought out.
And the mystery of what happened to war friend Jack Allen remains unsolved. But
thank you, sir.
He made new friends.
Thank you, sir.
Young friends.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Lots of friends.
Yeah. Thanks.
Right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Something you really enjoy. People finally realizing you did something.
For his service in Korea and Vietnam. And right now we're with Bob Kittleson. And Bob, I was standing right there when all those young kids were shaking your hand. What'd you think about that?
It made me feel wonderful that they remember the wars we served in.
Bob, does that picture look familiar? You know who that is?
No.
That's Jack Allen.
My word.
That's Jack Allen.
Wonderful.
Here's what we found out about Jack. He was born in Lenox, South Dakota. He was married. He had 2 kids, Robert Allen and Leslie Margaret Allen. And one of his hobbies just happened to be model airplanes. and Bob, I'm sorry to tell you, and you know this already, but he's officially listed as missing in action and presumed dead.
He was one of the best pilots I ever flew with. He was great. He knew how to fly a B-26, I'll say that. And because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be alive today.
Bob's story was the last in D.C., but there was still one more story to tell, the homecoming here in Anchorage. World War II ended decades ago, but it was like servicemen and women were coming home from the war.
Love it.
For the first time today. Explain your feeling as if you came off that plane.
Well, it was like coming home. That's the only thing I can say. Boy, there's just nothing like home.
It couldn't have been better. It could not have been better. This is overwhelming. I'm an emotional guy, and more than once I've had tears come to my eyes.
Bob Kittleson made it through 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. What does this mean for you, Bob?
The greatest thing that's ever happened to me.
Well, Vietnam vets didn't get quite the reception after their war. Roger Brooks chose to focus on Vietnam vets who couldn't be here in person.
That's just for all the guys who didn't make it.
Alaska's governor showed up for the important day.
Welcome home.
Governor,
welcome home.
I can't believe it.
And told vets he'll never take the flag and the freedom it stands for granted. Now they say war and the years that follow changes people. After only 3 days in Washington, D.C., what Alaska vets saw there has changed a number of these men and women forever.
Maybe through the years that they would forgot about what we did during World War II, but this is definitely showing me that the American public does not forget their veterans. And it's heartwarming.
So many years has gone by, and I just took it for granted. My country forgot me. Now I know different.
So, for those of you who've thanked a vet for their service or showed up here today to make sure that veterans are not forgotten,
Thank you so much for your service. You bet.
Mission accomplished. As we come to a close, we want to thank Alaska Airlines for doing so much to make this trip happen. And thanks to the Alaska Aviation Museum for allowing us to use this beautiful building. And as we leave, we thought it would be appropriate for veterans to close the show with their thoughts about their service and Memorial Day. Tell me what Memorial Day means to you.
I think after seeing Arlington during our trip, it made more.
It was hard for you.
We know now the price is very high.
Price is high.
And we are a country of warriors, and we should find a way to avoid wars.
What does Memorial Day mean to you?
Day off. No, it's just like the war. All I was doing is doing my job. Of course, I'm glad to be here, though.
How old are you now?
I'm 89.
89. What do you think about during Memorial Day?
Try to forget.
Try to forget.
There's some things you don't forget, and you can't forget. Dachau prison camp, that's the first one Hitler set up. We liberated that thing. A German officer has his head blown off. How am I going to get rid of that? These are things that you can't get rid of.
We're Erica and Liam from St. Elizabeth and Seton in Anchorage, Alaska.
Letters from kids on this Memorial Day. The first letter is for Frank Flavin, who exchanged gunfire with Germans during World War II.
We thank you for all you have done for our country. We are grateful for your service and braveness. God blesses you. Thanks again, Erica and Liam.
This letter goes to Territorial Guard member David Levitt Sr., who protected Alaska's coast but wasn't even paid or even recognized as a veteran until 2000.
Thank you for serving our country. From Bryce to USA, you win.
The next letter is for Robert Kittleson, shot down in the Korean War.
Thank you for your kindness and risking your life for us. Thank you for going to save our land. Thank you.
And the last letter goes to Eldon Gallier, whose ship was sunk by a torpedo. He says only 5 crew members survived.
Have a safe flight and stay safe. I'm sorry if in the war you fought and one of your friends died. Many thanks to you for fighting in the war. From Tegan to veteran.